Welcome to the Chief Life Podcast,
where we deliver guests and knowledge from around the world right to your ears.
focusing on nutrition, exercise, health, and wellness.
So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Alrighty, guys, welcome back to the Chief Life Podcast. I'm Matthias Turner, and today I have Melissa Henig with me from rawpaleo.com. Melissa, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So let's dive in a little deeper. What got you into raw paleo? How did you start this whole movement that you've got going?
Right. Well, I started a raw diet, raw vegan first.
Uh-huh.
And then I did that for a year and I felt really good. And I was like preaching it like it was the answer.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started to have, it started going downhill.
Yeah.
I started noticing muscle definition. I was losing muscle mass and my teeth were hurting and I was always bloated and starving and, things were going downhill. So I got introduced to raw paleo where there was a whole crowd where I lived in California and they were all eating raw meat and raw dairy and raw eggs. They kept telling me about these things that I was deficient in and missing. Zinc and iron and cholesterol. And, so it was kind of like right around the time that I was noticing the deficiencies as well.
Yeah.
And so someone made me steak tartare, like the traditional raw filet mignon with the egg yolk in the middle. And I was still vegan at the time.
Wow.
But I ate it because I was open, because I was noticing like a lot was going wrong. And so like from that day on, I never looked back. I mean, my body like loved it. I finished the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. And so with that, it's is it pretty much like minced meat? What you guys would call ground meat?
Well, it's not really ground because that ground is like minced through a meat grinder.
Yeah.
But this is actually you take a fillet, a piece of steak, and you just cut it into really small little chunks.
Yeah. And so let's dive into it a little bit. Why were they telling you that you should be having some raw meat and some raw egg? Why is that a thing?
Well, I was just cutting out so many food categories and missing so many things in my diet, especially as a female and really like balancing hormones, manufacturing hormones. I need the fat, like raw fat is so important. Yeah. And so, I was just, they were like, this stuff's really going to help you feel better, feel stronger, have more energy, so it was like it was perfect timing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's incredible. Something they used to do back in it was pretty much like World War II, I think, is they would get grapes and they would smash them up and then they'd put raw milk into it. Sorry, not raw milk, raw eggs into it and blend it all up like a juice pretty much. And that was how the soldiers would gain a lot of blood back. When they couldn't do blood transfusions out in the battleground, what they'd do is they'd have that drink instead. And it was a good way to get their red blood cell count back all the way up. It's pretty crazy, but it's very interesting. It shows exactly what you can do with food. Like it can really restore and heal the body.
Oh yeah, it's very regenerative, rebuilding of all the tissues and muscles, and food's so healing. Raw, well, they all have different healing potential. So I eat cooked food as well. Yeah. And it's not like I say, like from my research, I'd like a lot of Weston A. Price stuff too. Uh-huh. And our ancestors and the research there is that we ate cooked and raw both. Mm-hmm. So, and the raw food has a really high healing potential. I do think when you cook things, it's denaturing nature. So I like to get as much raw in as possible still, but I've definitely found the balance.
Yeah, that's unreal. And so you said that you're in the stage where your friends kind of introduce you to this. What happened from there? Like you got into the stage where you were eating it and you're like, wow, this is good and I need this because I'm obviously craving it and I'm eating it more. Then what happened? Like what was the next steps from there?
Right. And then I joined a club, and we had a club in Los Angeles where I was living in California. And I started getting boxes of raw dairy from the Amish. Mm-hmm. So you can become a member of the club, and they would like piggyback it in on a truck, all this raw dairy. And so then I really just totally started incorporating as much, like my body had never had the raw butter, the fat soluble vitamins. I went and found a farmer. I found some raw milk. And I was just chugging it. Like, I was eating a pound of raw butter a week and a gallon of raw milk. Like, I don't need that much anymore because my body, like the nutrition requirements are now met.
It sounds like a bulking protocol more than a healing one.
Oh,
right?
Exactly. I did gain a little weight in the beginning of that transition. And then it's like, it's all just balanced out now.
Yeah, that's incredible. And so were you making the butter yourself, or is it coming raw and made for you?
Yeah, I've done both.
Okay.
It's just, it's the amounts that I'm eating. I do order it.
Yeah. And so what were the major changes, I guess, that you saw within the start? Like you said that you were a bit deficient. Had you had bloods done or anything like that you could kind of test and feel, test and test again, or was it literally just by feel?
Yeah, I haven't been to a doctor in years, so I really don't know. But sometimes I think it would be interesting to get a blood test or something. But yeah, it was all by feel. I could see my hair was thickening. The like white lines in my nails and things were disappearing. I was feeling stronger. Yeah. It was like I actually like gained weight, but I didn't physically look any bigger. So like something in me was getting denser, which makes sense. I was eating all plants. Yeah. I was exactly. So I was much more grounded and like this denser feel, which felt a lot healthier.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, there's a lot to it. My wife, she actually, we got her genetics done and we had a geneticist go over it and we did that all on the podcast, which is really cool. So the listeners would know this, but there was, she has a gene that says that she has to have meat from animal product, like from animal produce, because if she doesn't have meat, then she eventually will get incredibly sick. It's just that her body can't digest the B12 properly without it being from an animal. Even if she was to supplement every single day and use B12, she would eventually get very sick, which is very interesting. But it's actually something that we're finding a lot with the vegan and plant-based people, is that eventually, like 6 to 12 months around, after following it very strictly, that they do kind of have that little drop. Like they feel incredible for a fair while and then they drop back down. So you said that your hair was thinning, your muscles were kind of wasting away a little bit. What else were you finding? Were you incredibly tired?
I was tired. I noticed bruising, so probably some anemia. Yeah. I was eating like mounds of kale and dates, sugar and kale, and just always bloated and gassy. And like when I eat raw cheese and meat, I don't get that. So there's definitely like something going on with the digestion.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting to say like you really have to listen to your body. The body is incredibly smart and will always give you signs and symptoms, and this is exactly what your body was doing, right? It's like, hey, I'm not in a great state. Like you might have felt better, but right now I don't feel good. So you need to do something. You need to change in some way. So once again, I'd love to go back to the raw. Why raw? Is there some benefits to having raw apart from the side effects that you were saying, or apart from the fact that you were saying like it's just taking away from nature, it's taking a step further?
Yeah, well, definitely like even Weston Price teaches on the fats, on raw animal fats to keep them raw. Yeah. Because once you pasteurize it, you're denaturing all the fat. Definitely. And changing the molecules and the structure, and then pasteurization. A lot of people have allergies and inflammation. It does leach calcium from the bones. Like some of these things that I did preach when I was vegan, it actually is really true about the pasteurized dairy. I was just going to say really quickly, with the pasteurization, what happens is they actually remove the lactase from the milk as well, which is the enzyme that we need to be able to digest lactose properly. So a lot of people think, I'm fine with milk, and then all of a sudden they're not fine with milk, depending on if they're having raw or pasteurized. And so it's very interesting that happens as a process. So that's why a lot of people can deal with raw milk and go incredibly well on raw milk, but as soon as they have something like pasteurized and homogenized milk, they have such a bad effect. Yeah, and exactly what you're saying. I call that pasteurization intolerant because it's not lactose intolerant. Where you're right, it's missing the enzyme lactase.
Yeah.
So that's one of the main reasons for eating raw food is the enzymes are available. Raw meat has enzymes, and there's a beneficial bacteria on raw meat and raw milk. It's a probiotic as well, and like building the gut and the microbiome is going to keep one healthy and vibrant. So yeah, the enzymes, that's why I don't like to freeze my meat when I do eat it frozen, because I want enzymes and bacteria. The freezing, extreme heat or extreme cold is going to kill both of those.
Yeah.
Like the main reasons for eating it raw. So I just go to the butcher shop and I always make sure it's fresh, never frozen for my raw meat dishes. And I'm not like against freezing, because we just butchered a sheep and we can't eat the whole sheep in a week.
No, exactly.
So we have to freeze some, but when I really want that healing potential of the raw meat, I make sure it's fresh, never frozen.
Yeah, definitely. I actually go out and I do a bit of hunting, like gather our own food. And something that happens is obviously you do get bacteria on foods when they're game or when they're wild, and depending on the meat, you can really tell just by looking at the liver, for instance. You can tell whether the animal is a clean animal or not. But it's a good way when you freeze them is to get rid of the bad bacteria, because there's obviously good and bad bacteria there. But unfortunately, it does get rid of some of the good bacteria as well. So, what are maybe some of the good bacteria you're getting from a raw meat, from eating raw meat?
I wouldn't know like the exact name of the bacteria, okay. But I do know like everything has bacteria. Meat, milk, veggies, eggs. I mean, everything has a natural bacteria on it.
Yeah.
So if we can just keep building the microbiome with all the different species from all the food groups, it's going to help.
Yeah, definitely. And so is there a cut of meat that you're looking for? Like, is there a best cut of meat for when you're eating the raw?
Yeah, I mean, I've done the sirloin, filet mignon is the best. The backstrap. It just melts in your mouth like tuna, or people aren't afraid at all of sashimi and eating raw fish.
No, exactly.
But then they get squeamish when you talk about raw meat, and it almost tastes like sushi in a way. I mean, with the backstrap like that, it's really, it's so soft and tender. That's a really good way to start if someone's just going to get into making steak tartare. And
so when you're making a steak tartare, what's the best recipe you've come across to kind of ease someone into it, I think, rather than just dropping them in, hey, here's a steak, go wild.
Yeah, I mean, I just do like I would I put salt, pepper, olive oil. I chop up a bunch of fresh herbs, so you can use parsley, sage, cilantro. It's almost like mixed in there like a salad would be.
Yeah, okay.
There's a lot of flavor. The meat itself, there's not much flavor.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. So what about the raw egg?
The raw egg, well, it digests really fast. And so I keep a raw egg together. I always eat the white and the yolk. Yeah. A lot of people like to separate them. And I feel like it comes together in this perfect package. Mm-hmm. And you always find fat and protein together in nature. Like, on the steak, there's always the fat on the edge. Uh-huh. In the egg, you got the fat and the protein.
In nuts, like protein and fat, like it's always the way.
True. Yeah. Nuts. And so I just usually put it in a smoothie. Yeah. I mean, I have for a while, years ago when I was really into it, I would just take them in a shot glass, raw eggs.
Yeah.
It's not that easy. I mean, the texture is kind of gross.
Oh, definitely. I was going to say, like, I'm sure so many people are squirming right now, like, maybe not into it. And so what are some of the benefits from... I mean... Oh, sorry. I was going to say, what are some of the benefits from having something like a raw egg?
Yeah, mostly there's so much good fat and cholesterol, and really like stabilizing and building hormones, balancing hormones. Like for I've had a lot of clients that have had reproductive issues and not getting a period or too many, or like just, I mean, a lot of people even start putting raw eggs in their smoothies and get pregnant. Yeah. So it's like, that's one thing. It's really nice to get the raw fat and the raw cholesterol. And then, I mean, even the raw protein, raw eggs have a lot of sulfur, so they're actually really cleansing as well. I like people to start slow on them. Yeah. Like if a raw egg, or if an egg went rotten, it would have that sulfur smell. Mm-hmm. And if you go to a hot springs with that really strong smell, it's really cleansing.
Oh, wow.
I don't eat raw eggs like rotten, but in my group, people do. They call them high eggs.
High eggs.
and they actually like break it a little until it gets that smell.
Wow.
That's just, I don't do that. That's kind of gross, but they swear by, that little bit of bacteria in there is more, because it's this rotten egg. It just instantly clears depression and constipation. And there's another thing called high meat too, where people purposely they rotten their meat.
Yeah. Well, I know that hanging meat, for instance, like aged meat is a really, really popular thing here in Australia. They'll sell like it's the backstrap, but on the bone still, and they'll sell that like 45 days, 90 days hung, which means that it's got this dry layer on it, and they'll sell that for a heap. Like, it's really expensive, but that's what all the meat connoisseurs go for. Like, they love that. But I'd never really heard, and it really kind of clicked for me just then. It's almost like fermenting any style of food, right? It's like your kombucha or your sauerkraut, like fermenting it so you get the extra bacteria. It almost does make sense, but at the same time, we don't want people just going out and eating rotten food. That's not what you're talking about. No. These, like, the people that have done that were like in this raw meat group for years, and really, really trying to heal things too. Yeah. So that's a pretty extreme thing. Yeah, and so fertility, that's something that it's unfortunately becoming more and more prevalent in the world that we live in. People are more stressed. They're eating a lot of junk and not prepping themselves properly for fertility. Something that we had to do to get pregnant was a lot of pre-work on Stace's diet, and we had to really make sure that her stress levels and everything else was not too extreme, because you can't get pregnant when you're incredibly stressed, and all of that, like, your lifestyle comes into a lot of play. And a lot of people, unfortunately, just go to the doctors and they do a test and they say you can't have kids naturally, you have to go and have IVF, whereas really you just need to change some things within life. What sort of process did you guys see when you fell pregnant? Was there a fair bit of pre-work you had to do?
Well, it wasn't as planned, but I had already been eating the raw butter and the raw milk and the raw dairy for years. So my body was prepped. Like, you really can't just get pregnant and be like, oh, now I need to eat better. Because once you find out the heartbeat's already beating, and it's just like, people need at least for a year to really prep their body, detox, and to also eat a lot of fat, because so like after 35, there's estrogen and progesterone, these two main pregnancy hormones, and the estrogen really drop. I'm sorry, the estrogen goes up, the progesterone drops. And for the egg to implant into the uterus, women really need the progesterone up. And that's what the raw eggs and the raw fat, that's going to keep the progesterone up and really help the process and help people stay pregnant. Yeah.
And so as soon as you cook the egg, does that take away from it? You won't have that same effect?
Yeah, I mean, from my research, yes. I hate to be so like cut and dry, because I don't think cooked eggs is going to kill people or anything.
No, definitely not. No, but it might not be as beneficial.
It won't be as beneficial or as healing or helping with hormones, right?
And so is there like a minimum effective dose? Like, is it for the people who are a bit squirmish when it comes to, say, a raw egg, is it something that you could say, hey, well, if you're having at least one a week, that's a good starting place? Or is there, like, you need to have this many before it's beneficial?
I usually start people with one a day.
Yeah. I think, like you said, putting it in the smoothie, that's the best way. It covers it up.
Oh, yeah. You have no idea it's in there. Yeah, that's really easy.
And I think it's pretty important to say we're not talking about caged eggs here. We're talking about good quality, free range. Like, it's the best of the best eggs you can get your hands on, sort of thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. With the meat as well. I should always talk about the sourcing. That's the number one thing, is I'm not just like going to the grocery store and buying some meat and taking it out of the package and eating it raw. No. So it's all organic and grass fed, and if I can, grass finished. Yeah,
definitely. I think a lot of people don't really understand the grass finished thing. It's we've got, my family actually own a property which is cattle farming, and they do grass fed. And what I've got two sides of the family, and one side will do grain finish, which means they're free ranging cattle and they're grass fed their whole life. At the very end, just before they go to market, they start to feed them grain because it increases their fat level. And so that grain finish, although it is worthwhile for the farmer, maybe it's very unnecessary for us as individuals to be eating, because you get all of that side effects from the grains. from everything from the herbicides and pesticides that they use when making the grains, all the way through to, unfortunately, like some of the negative things that we see, that we talked about with Dr. Anthony J about, which is all of your like estrogens, estrogenics, stuff that can transition across. Now, when it's grass finished, what they will do is they will eat grass the whole way through. And my family who sell grass-fed cattle, to fatten them up, what they actually use is like a coconut husk. So they get the coconut and they feed that to it, and it's a very like organic natural coconut husk that they'll use. And so it's a very clean way to fatten the cows up at the end of it. So it's just like with humans, if you eat a whole heap of extra coconuts on a day, you'll probably get a little bit chubbier by the end of it. It's like you were saying, when you ate a lot of raw milk, it's that extra fats probably that potentially add the calories right up. And so yeah, it's a really good way. And so it is really important to make sure that you're seeing a grass finished compared to the grain finished.
Yeah, and you would probably know this as well, that in my research, like once they start eating the grains, all the good fats that's been in there their whole life on grass, it gets quickly replaced with higher omega-6s and things. Mm-hmm. So it's kind
Which
of like
causes inflammation within us then.
Right. So so even when it's just grass fed and not finished, I still the fat in there feels like it's been replaced quickly with.
And so obviously rawpaleo.com is kind of all around the whole raw movement. You've got a cookbook with over 100 recipes in there. What can people kind of expect to see in that cookbook? Is it all about like raw meat and raw eggs?
Well, yeah, no, it's an introduction to the diet. It's for a beginner for sure. I tell some of my stories, some friends, some clients. I tell some stories in the beginning, and some about the nutrition of the food. And then I get into the 100 recipes. And there's a lot of raw butter recipes. One of the main reasons people love the book. I have a raw butter pie recipe, and that's kind of everyone's gateway in. It's kind of like the bacon for paleo. The raw butter pie is so delicious. And, even when people are vegan, they're like, oh, do you have any raw butter pie? I used to sell it at the farmer's market.
Yeah.
So that's in
incredible.
there.
Now, I mean, depending on who you talk to, some people would say that the dairy doesn't fall into the paleo window, right? They would say, well, that's more primal, or that's this and that's that. Or your analysts that come and look at it and have their judgment on everything that nutritionists do. How does it fall in? Obviously, it always has to be raw, right? It's always a good quality, once again, sourced from the best of the best.
Yeah, it falls in for me because I really feel that our paleo ancestors they were in a much cleaner world, cleaner environment. They didn't even have the grains or all these chemicals that come along with it. So maybe they didn't need some of the fat soluble vitamins. Actually, there weren't even cows. But now in the toxic world we live in, the vitamin A, D, K, the things that come in the raw animal fats are just so vital for me to survive in this kind of environment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How old is your kid now?
He's 22 months.
Okay. And is he still breastfeeding?
Yes.
Yeah. And does he eat solids as well, though?
Yes, a ton of raw dairy.
Yeah. Okay, cool. That was kind of the question. So obviously you can get it all from you to start with. Like he gets transitioned from that, but then also getting the extras in, because they talk about like some of the first vaccines they make you get is like your vitamin Ks and your vitamin As and bits and pieces. Like they're trying to pump you full of these things where you can get it naturally from your foods as well.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he started drinking the raw goat milk because that's the most. It's similar to the mother's milk, about 8 months. But yeah, I mean, he is sturdy. He's sturdy. That's like the one word I always get. And that's what the Weston A. Price found when he did all his research on children growing up on raw animal fats, that they were really sturdy and happy and strong kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. It's very interesting. And it goes back to what we were talking about with milk before. But I grew up on raw milk, like being on the farm. I grew up on raw milk. And every time I have raw milk, I'm fine with it. Every time I have any other thing that has been pasteurized or homogenized, it clogs me up like nothing else. It's super crazy. And so it's very interesting to see like that's the same food, but it's the quality of food is so important, and making sure that you are getting that is such an important piece. And like we don't want to obviously just say, hey, go and drink a whole heap of milk. here in Australia, raw milk is actually illegal to buy. They do sell it as bath milk instead. And the way that it's produced is the exact same as regular milk. It's put into the cold room straight away and delivered in a cold truck and goes to the shops in the exact same way that regular milk would, apart from the pasteurization, homogenization. Which means that it is still, and it's not recommended, but it's still consumable, right? You can go and have it. And so that's the way that I drink my raw milk, is I'll go and get a bottle of raw milk from the shop because I know it's not been heated up, it's not been gone through a bad process at all. It's still in a really good condition. And I mean, that's just from the person that I buy it from. I don't know if that's the case for everywhere. In America, is it the same way?
Did you say it was so ours is illegal in a lot of states as well, but you can buy it as pet consumption.
It's well, I don't know, actually. It maybe. It's called bath milk here, so it's for bathing in.
Oh, bath.
Yeah.
Oh,
sorry,
okay.
yeah, Australian slang.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's nice. You can bathe in it.
Yeah, I'm sure it'd be nice.
Yeah, give you really soft skin.
Mm-hmm.
No, this is for pet consumption. There are a lot of, I think there's only 17 states left that it's not legal in.
Yeah,
so it has become legal in a lot of states now.
Yep.
And there's always a way to find it. There's realmilk.com. You can put in a zip code and find raw milk in the area. Like when there's a will, there's a way, because I always find raw milk. And I can't, it's like my thing, my priority, you know?
Oh, it's incredible. And the taste of it is so much different. It's just incredible.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's so creamy. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about raw butter for a second. How would you make some raw butter from milk? Because it's something you said you have done before.
Yeah, you just so raw milk that hasn't been pasteurized, it comes straight from the cow to the glass jar. Mm-hmm. The cream rises to the top, and you can just scrape that cream off. And I just whipped it in a food processor. Okay. And that turns into butter. And then you strain it through.
Anything?
No, you don't add anything. I didn't.
Wow. Yeah.
Maybe some salt for some people that want salt.
Yeah.
And then there's a little liquid involved, and you just strain it through a cheesecloth, and yeah, that's it. It's super easy. And it's one ingredient, raw cream.
Yeah, that's incredible. And so how long do you how long are you beating that for before it turns into, say, a butter consistency?
Yeah, 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah, on like not a hand mixer, on an actual electric mixer.
Electric, yeah. I mean, I've seen people like take it in a mason jar and shake for 30 minutes till cream turned into butter. They're like sweating and everything.
That's a good workout. Oh, that's unreal. That's crazy. And so that's actually something I'd love to try. Something I did see, you have some Cave Woman, Caveman, and Cave Baby creams on your website. What is this?
It's a tallow skincare, so it's animal fat, the whole thing. And I mix a little bit of olive oil in and a little essential oil. Okay. And it just matches our DNA better than anything synthetic or any other oils or nuts. It's coming from the same animal, like an animal, you know. Mm-hmm. And
you're using it just as a rub-on cream, more so?
Yeah, it's a lotion, hands, body, feet. Mm-hmm. The fat-soluble vitamins are in the fat, the A, D, K, and you just rub that. And I render it on really, really low heat for a long time. So it is heated. It's not raw fat, but it has a shelf life for a year. It's very stable fat.
Yeah, wow. And so with something like vitamin D coming from a fat-soluble source, when you're rubbing it, like obviously your body absorbs it, but how much transition does that have compared to, say, going outside? Is there going to be a lot more absorption from something like a rub? Do you know?
I would probably think it's better to go outside.
Yeah, definitely.
20 minutes of, I make it a priority of 20 minutes of naked sun time every day because I don't take any supplements. Yeah. So, like the animals lay out with as much skin showing as possible. Yeah. And so I make it 20 minutes a day in the sun.
And so you're in Arizona. How close are your neighbors to you?
Yeah, well, it's fenced.
Okay, it's fenced. I can't see.
But there's always a way. Actually, one house that I lived in, there was a little nook on the one little side. You could lay there naked.
Yeah, it's just about making it work.
Yeah, you got to find a way.
Yeah, and so let's talk about maybe some of your daily practices. What else are you doing? 20 minutes of naked sun laying. What else are you trying to get in each day?
Okay, I do something called oiling. 20 minutes of oiling a day. Our nervous system lies right under the skin.
Yeah.
And the nervous system loves fat for anxiety, just to ground and nourish the nervous system. And so I've been doing I do herbs as well as with all my animal fats and butter. So I've been doing herbal oiling 20 minutes a day. And that's a really good self-care practice to relax and nourish the skin with herbs and fat.
And so when you're talking about like the herbs, is it herbs that you've grown from your garden, or is it like the essential oil, like the snippets of the herbs?
I don't use essential oils for that because they're kind of unnatural. They're so concentrated. It takes hundreds and hundreds of plants for one little bottle.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I wildcraft the herbs. So I go in nature and I find yarrow is the latest thing. I soak it in olive oil for a month, and then I do that. I rub that on the oiling. So that's really healing and nice. And we've made it a culture in our family where we oil the baby, we oil each other's feet,
That's awesome. So it's kind of like I guess a soft massage really that you're doing to yourself with oiling.
Yeah, it is. Exactly.
And so what are some of the benefits that you did see, like from you yourself doing it? Did you see that you were getting less anxious? Like, is that something you kind of noticed?
Yeah, especially at night. If you do it at night, it really relaxes you. It helps with sleeping a lot. You can oil the earlobes, even on babies and kids. The earlobes are really sensitive, and that'll help relax people right away.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, so it's really relaxing is what I found.
Okay,
it's kind of a protective barrier too on your skin just from everything.
And so why would you not just use, say, like a moisturizer? Why would it be better to, say, use an oil instead?
Or a fat. Yeah. Like I use an olive oil. I don't know what's in the moisturizer. I mean, this is what I know to be the most organic and natural way to do it. Okay, and people for years have been mixing plants in a fat and making medicine out of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And so what else do you do within a day? So you've got your oiling, you've got your sun time. Is there anything else that you're kind of making sure you get in?
We juice every morning. We do a green juice. We go in and out of it. We're on right now.
Yeah, definitely.
We've been juicing every day.
And so what's the juice? What do you chuck in there? What's your ultimate mix?
Oh, so my favorite is just three things. It's celery, cucumber, and parsley. Mm-hmm. Those three things. I don't put a lot of sugar in there or anything. No spinach, no kale.
How much are you putting in? Like obviously, it's going to be a fair bit of celery.
Yeah, we do about a stalk and a half, and then 2 cucumbers and maybe half a bunch of parsley.
So something like that is obviously very alkalizing to the body, brings your pH levels to a really good state. What other sort of things are you seeing from a juice like that?
Well, it's really hydrating. It's a really good way to hydrate and get a lot of minerals and vitamins in through the greens, through the juice. Like you said, it's very alkalizing with all the raw meat and dairy and not raw. Even when I eat cooked meat and raw dairy, it's really alkalizing to get the green juice. That is really important on the diet too.
Okay, so how else can people get alkalized, I guess?
I don't know. I always tell them green juice. They could eat vegetables.
Yeah. The other thing is water, obviously, if they can get their hands on a good quality alkalized water.
So yeah, maybe spring water. I think there's a point where people get too alkalized too. Everything's really about balance, know. So sometimes the alkalizing water could be too much.
So have you seen something where people would say, for instance, go a bit hard on the meat side of things and not put enough vegetables in, and that be a negative effect on them for the alkalizing state where they're not doing that?
I've seen that. Yeah, they seem to be agitated. Can't night different things from being too sick. It's probably such a personal thing too, because I think if they come off of a really bad, the standard American diet, the SAD diet, and then they start doing all meat and they're cutting everything else out, they're going to feel good. I mean, it's like, where are they coming from,
Yeah. And so on the other side of things, people who come from, say, a SAD diet and jump onto something like this, potentially can see some changes within things like cholesterol, which is typically something that the doctors will really hone in on when they go for something like blood tests. They'll say, okay, well, hold up. 3 months ago, your cholesterols were here, and now all of a sudden they've skyrocketed. And a lot of the time we find it's just people getting used to the fat content and getting used to being able to actually process it. And if they give it, say, another month or two, that it typically drops a lot lower than what it ever was. Have you kind of seen anything like that within the raw paleo movement?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. The body balances itself out. It will go really high and then drop. And also women with the highest cholesterol live the longest in my research.
There you go. That's very interesting.
Yeah, they do. I don't know. I don't remember what book that's from, but I always remember that.
Yeah. And I think depending on where the ladies are on their hormonal cycle, but also depending on their ages of like, for instance, if they're post menopausal, then it can also really vary. Like your cholesterol levels can vary a whole heap.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know that exactly. I mean, I haven't dealt with that yet myself.
Me either. Excellent. So, sorry, go on.
Kind of like as you go through each thing, you learn so much about it.
Yeah, it really is. And obviously, with the world of science that we have now, it's quite bizarre. The things that are coming out, the things that are getting pushed, the things that get pushed away, the things that get proven, and the things that come back around because they were misleading to start with the first sciences. So, I mean, as much as modern day science is absolutely incredible and I freaking love it, at the same time, you do need to be cautious about it all. And it's like you need to look at it from both sides a lot of the time, which is awesome. Yeah, it's just part of it.
Yeah, I always say science is ever changing. They're always changing their minds. So I hate to talk in absolutes because next year it might be different.
Exactly right. And I mean, every scientist's goal is to prove each other scientists wrong. So
okay.
they're happy to go out there and work as hard as they can against someone's theory or against someone's proven work because it just shows that it can be taken another way. So yeah. It works both ways, really. Excellent. Okay, so is there anything else you guys are doing? You've kind of got your green juice, your sun, and your oiling. Is there any major things that you're doing within a day that you find really beneficial?
We have a lot of nature connection time.
Okay,
we go
excellent.
out in nature a lot. We joke that we're the barefoot family, taking our shoes off and really connect with the earth.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, we do that every day. Sometimes 2 walks, sometimes morning and night in nature. And it really helps to go to the same spot too and really form a relationship with that spot and watch it change through the seasons. And it's really interesting. You can get closer with nature when you see the changes in the same spot.
That's really interesting. I'd never really thought of it like that. Like we often tell people to get outside and do some grounding because of just the benefits that you get from that. Like getting outside and being barefoot is incredible for you. But I never really thought of the connection that you get with revisiting the one place. That's very interesting.
Yeah, because you can form a relationship when you're seeing things change.
Yeah, definitely. You got a visitor.
Yeah, he probably wants milk, but he can wait.
Okay, excellent. And so, yeah, I guess it's very, I think about the farm that I go to a lot. It's the family farm, and I get up there quite a lot, in particular in the last year or so. And it's quite interesting to go just from 2 weeks difference to see how much of a change it can be. And we were in an incredible drought last year, and you pretty much saw like the lasts of the water sources pretty much dry up within a 2 week difference. Like it was just crazy to see how much of a difference was made in 2 weeks. But then we got an extreme amount of rain, and so to once again see how green it literally was a changed place. Like it's so crazy to see those different things. And now that you say like you build a connection, you build a relationship with the location, it kind of does make sense, because each time when you go to a space, and even if you go to your old city or your old town, you see the changes that it makes, and it probably almost hits a spot with you, right? Like you have those points of like, oh, that was the old cinema, and now I'm never going to remember it again because it's now 3 shops or something, whatever it might be.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's fun. It's nice to do that, and we really believe in that everything's alive and everything has a spirit. And so we go up to flowers and we compliment them and say, wow, you smell so good. And we don't just like pick things. And there's gratitude involved, and there's mindfulness involved, and we teach that to our son as well on these walks.
Yeah, something that we do on the health retreats that we run, we get people to find an offering which might sound a bit bizarre to someone who's never done it, but it's also about asking for permission before you go and take it. Like, it's not just stealing something from the land as such.
Right.
And so it's really cool. We get people come with like bouquets of flowers. We get people come with feathers or with a cool rock that they found. And it kind of, a big part of the purpose of doing it is just to get people to actually focus on nature a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely. And there is more mindfulness. We're not just grabbing and taking, and what can I use this for and take, and there's a little bit of giving back, and there's the offering and the gratitude. And if we don't have a bouquet of flowers, we can give a strand of hair or saliva or sing a song. There's always ways to give gratitude. Yeah,
definitely. Oh, that's really cool. And so that's a fair few things you're doing within the day. Is there anything else you're getting out?
At night we have some boundaries around putting away phones and computers, and we don't have a television, so we put on salt lamps to have the red light, and we read and read books and go to bed, and that's the day. So
with the salt lamps, are you changing the bulbs in them?
I've bought the red bulbs.
The red bulbs, yeah, okay, cool. Because a lot of people had been saying, well, we're just using the regular salt lamps. Is that a big issue? And it does actually cause issues if you're still using regular bulbs. Like, you're still getting the blue light emission from them. So, it is important to get the red bulbs.
Right.
How do you find reading in the red light?
Well, I have a headlamp I use with the red light on it.
Yep.
So it's fine. It's a little bit of an adjustment getting used to that.
Yeah, definitely.
But when the headlamp's right on your head, you can see the book.
Yeah, okay. We haven't set it up in our new house, but we used to have a red light in our bathroom. And it was excellent because you'd get home and you just need to have your shower and go to bed or whatever. And it was just nice to have it in that red light because you don't feel so awake and alert when you're doing it. I couldn't imagine having the whole house lit up in the red though.
Yeah, well, if you put a lamp in every room.
Yeah, definitely.
Do it, but I even know someone that puts the red light in their fridge.
Okay.
So when
wow.
they open the fridge at night, there's red light.
Yeah. Far out. I can just imagine like a red glowing house as you're walking down the street.
Nice. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. All right, excellent. Well, I mean, that's a fair background on yourself and kind of the way that you guys are living right now. What is the deal with Raw Paleo? Like, what are you guys doing with that? Obviously, you've got your books and you've got your different programs. Oh, actually, one thing I did want to touch on was the liver cleanse. Can we touch on a liver cleanse really quick? Why is a liver cleanse important to do?
Oh, yeah. That was a couple years ago. I still have that up there. It's just, it's so good to focus on that in the spring. Mm-hmm. When everything else is in renewal, you want to kind of like remove the stagnant energy from the winter and all the foods people ate, and it's a really good time to jumpstart your diet and health, and you can just do that with the liver cleanse.
Yeah, that's excellent. I mean, a lot of the stuff that we were talking about before is how toxic the world is, and a lot of this stuff, unfortunately, gets built up in kidneys and livers. And if we're not cleansing them every once in a while, it can just stay there and it can affect you for a long time. And things like heavy metal poisoning are a thing because of the environments that we're now living in. So a liver cleanse, how might that look? Like if it's being done in a few days, what does it kind of look like?
Yeah, the recipes I have for that are all actually smoothie. They're well, you blend them in the Vitamix, everything that's good for the liver, and then warm it lightly on the stove. So it was no solids for 3 days, or it was 5 days, and so it was a lot. You're bringing in so many nutrients at the same time of cleansing the liver, like things that people just don't eat all the time. Yeah, and for 5 meals a day, you're bringing in this blended vegetables.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, that's very interesting. Something a bit different. That's cool. Excellent. So, I mean, you're someone who really doesn't rely on a lot of supplements as such. You're always trying to get it naturally from life and from plants and from natural sources as much as possible. Is there any supplements that you take at all?
I go in and out of taking the beef liver.
Okay.
That's the only one. I should take that back. Sometimes I do mushrooms in the smoothies, like reishi.
Yep.
and some herbs, some hoshu wu, and what else do I have? Chaga.
Yeah.
But I'm not really taking I never take any type of vitamin supplement or something like that. It's all coming from whole foods and nature and sun.
Yeah. And what would you say has been the biggest shift that you've seen within the last few years since going on to raw paleo?
I would say strength. Just feeling really grounded and strong and having energy. Being satiated is a huge one. You don't really need much food. It just takes small amounts, a fistful of raw meat, or you could have like 3 fistfuls of cooked meat.
Yeah.
The nutrients is so much higher in the raw foods and all that raw fat that, but before getting pregnant, I didn't need much. And then when I got pregnant, I needed a lot more food.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Now you're feeding another human as well, right? Like it takes a fair bit of extra calories.
Yeah, but it's so satiating.
Yeah. Yeah, that's incredible. I actually didn't really know that about the meat when it's raw being 3 times more nutrient dense. That's incredible.
Yeah. It just, you can tell by eating it how less of it you need, which is good because it's expensive.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's incredible. All right, excellent. Well, I mean, is there anything else you'd like to leave the listeners with before we wrap up?
I think I touched on it all, just how important it is to go outside as much as you can during the day and breathe in the fresh air and get sunshine, take your shoes off. Like that's such a same amount of health to me as the raw food. Yeah. And maybe even more sometimes because we get so focused on the food and it's not all about the food.
Yeah, definitely.
So if people do a lot of food stuff, your listeners, I would definitely suggest as much nature time as possible.
Yeah, something that we do with all of our meal plan people that jump on board with this is we take them through the 7 pillars of health, and it's kind of because we realize that you can't just eat food and be great. Like you're not going to be optimal with your health if you're not focusing on what everything else is. Like if you're not sleeping well, if you're not getting outside and getting some natural light, if you're stressed out of your head, like these are all things that are going to really affect your results at the end of the day. And it seems too easy. I think people have made it complicated with life. Like, well, no, you can't just go outside and feel better for it. That's too easy. There has to be some sort of scientific pill or something that I need to be taking before I can feel better. Whereas like, no, this is the basics. Like, nail the basics, nail your foundations, and you'll never be knocked over.
Yeah, that nature won't hurt you if you go with the flow of it.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome, Melissa. Well, thank you very much for joining me today. I know that we're both a bit short on time, so we will have to kind of wrap up there. But where can people find you? Where can they follow along with your journeys and your adventures?
Yeah, I'm at rawpaleo.com is my website. And then I really like Instagram. So excellent. Instagram is my name. It's Melissa Henig. Okay, excellent. I'll make sure I've tagged that all in. Thanks. Well, excellent. Thank you very much. I think there's a lot in there, and I'd say for the listeners, if raw paleo is something that you're looking to do, it's probably worthwhile getting someone like Melissa on your side, because obviously there's a few steps to just introducing these foods. It's not just about going out and getting them and just going ham on them. Make sure you're eating every bit of it. It's there probably is a bit of a process to it, right? Like you said, maybe making sure you're getting a raw egg in every day, and making sure that when you're having the raw meat that you're doing it in the correct ways and you're getting the best cut. So it's not just you go and buy yourself a cut that you don't like and it's not a nice way of doing it. Like there is better ways to be doing it. So I'd definitely say if you're looking to get into something like your raw paleo, then it's definitely worthwhile going after someone like Melissa. Yes, I agree. Excellent. Well, thank you very much for joining me. All right. Thank you. Visit thechieflife.com for all of your nutrition coaching needs, your own personalized meal plan, as well as how you can get involved with one of our 7 pillar retreats.